You're listening to Short Inspirations from Ralph. God's Great Desire, Part 2. We talked about in the first episode that God's great desire, His primary motivation, is that He will be with us. It's a relationship thing. And this is depicted in the paintings on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel by Michelangelo, which he did between 1508 and 1512. Probably the most famous painting on the ceiling is the creation of Adam. So if you look carefully at the painting, and you can find a picture of him through Google, you notice that the figure of God is extended towards the man with great vigor. He twists his body to move it as close to the man as possible. His head is turned toward the man, and his gaze is fixed on him. His arm is stretched out, his index finger extended straight forward. Every muscle is taut. This is God rushing towards Adam on a cloud, one of the chariots of heaven, if you like, propelled by the angels. It's as if God's entire being is wrapped up in his impatient desire to close the gap between himself and this man. He can't wait. His hand comes within a hairbreadth of the man's hand. And apparently one of the messages that Michelangelo wanted to convey is God's implacable determination to reach out and to be with the person he's created. God is as close as he can be. But listen to this. Having come that close, he allows just a little space so that Adam can choose. He wants Adam to make the first move. He's waiting for them. And so for nearly half a millennium, this picture has spoken of God's great desire to be with human beings. And it's quite interesting because when you look at Adam in the painting, it's more difficult to work out what's going on. His arm is partially extended towards God, but his body reclines in a sort of a lazy pose, leaning backward as if he has no interest at all in making that connection. His hand looks almost limp. Maybe he assumes that God, having come this far, will close the gap. Maybe he's indifferent to the possibility of touching his creator. Maybe he lacks strength. All he would have to do is lift a finger. The painter seems to encapsulate the very state of the human frame here. It's a sort of indifference. It's like man is always looking the other way and doesn't see God. It's like we can sleepwalk through life and in a haze and we just don't see God anywhere, but he is everywhere and wants to be with us. Maybe that's why Paul wrote, "Wake up, O sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you." We mentioned in the last episode about Jacob having a dream of God, having a dream of the ladder from heaven to earth. And then he wakes up and he says, surely God was in this place and I didn't know it. And he renames the place Bethel. That is the house of God, the place where God is present. And so Jacob's eyes get open to the fact that God is right there in an ordinary place with this ordinary person. You see, this life-changing presence of God can turn up at any place at any time in our ordinary everyday lives. John Ortberg says, once you see God in an ordinary moment of an ordinary place, you'll never know where he'll show up next. And there is a huge number of instances throughout the Bible where God shows up. Balaam with a donkey that talked to him. There was Moses with God speaking to him through a burning bush. He can send messages through storms and rainbows and earthquakes and dreams. He whispers in a still, small voice. He opened the eyes of Elisha's servants when they were in a difficult place, and the servants saw that he was surrounded by horses and chariots of fire. He startled Samuel when he was calling to him in the night. Two early followers of Jesus were walking on the road to Emmaus, and they were absolutely astonished because they realized that they'd been talking to Jesus after quite a long time of talking to him. You see, we are all like Adam, and if we are aware of the gap, we will lift that finger and say, God, I want to touch you. I want your presence in my life because it transforms, it changes, and life will never be the same again. God bless you.